Africa, fact can definitely be stranger than fiction. 10 days ago, an explosive book appeared on shelves called Rogue, the inside story of SARS's elite crime unit. The authors are responding to claims that an elite unit established while Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan was head of the Revenue Services went rogue. In 2014, a series of sensational reports published by the Sunday Times claimed that the unit had spied on President Jacob Zuma, had entered into unlawful tax settlements and had even run a brothel. The claims are now at the centre of a Hawks investigation that was instigated by the new head of SARS, Moyane. The former head of the unit, Johann van Loggerenberg, former Deputy Commissioner Ivan Pillay and former Commissioner Gordhan were all told to present themselves to the Hawks last month. Well, in Rogue, van Loggerenberg and former SARS spokesperson Adrian Lackay argue that there never in fact was a rogue unit. And Lackay joins us in studio now. Thank you for joining us, Adrian. So this is so interesting to me because I used to speak to you when you were a SARS spokesperson, often about the successes of SARS. At that time, I'm interested to know, was there a shadow, some impending doom? Did you know what was going on? Did you have any sense it could get this messy in the future as well?
Not at all, Francis. Firstly, good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this program. I think when you refer to previous years when I would be in studios like this talking about SARS, all of us were very proud for the institution we worked for. All of us were proud to serve what Minister Gordhan would call a higher purpose, that we are SARS officials, we are there in the service of taxpayers of this country. We are there to help build a public institution that became a credible one, a flagship for the public sector, and that could be compared to anyone amongst its peers in the world. Since Moyane's appointment in October 2014, we've seen a series of headlines, particularly in the Sunday Times. As you have mentioned some of those headlines now, we bugged President Jacob Zuma, allegedly, this rogue unit. We ran a brothel. We entered illegal tax settlements. We spied on taxpayers. That was what played itself out in the media. It caused a lot of damage to the institution. It caused a lot of damage to people's careers. And in my view, people were hounded out of the institution. They weren't just suspended and eventually resigned, left the institution. They were hounded out because even after they left, many of them face criminal charges, including the Minister of Finance. Now, before this discussion, you touched on what the markets are looking like and the value of the currency. Every time there's a headline about the Hawks investigating the Minister of Finance, it affects our currency. Every time there's a headline, it is picked up and viewed by international investors. Every time the Minister of Finance has to address international audiences, he's asked these questions. Are you secure about your future? What about this Hawks investigation? So you have an untenable position in a constitutional democracy like ours, where a SARS commissioner, who's supposed to report to the Minister of Finance, is the complainant in a criminal matter with the Hawks against the Minister of Finance. It should signal to anyone a complete breakdown of working relationships, and it's unworkable. So that's where we find ourselves as the country regarding the Ministry of Finance and SARS, and I think it's very unfortunate. This was a proud institution, and people who work there took pride in their jobs.
Where do you find yourself individually? Because I understand you were among those called to the Hawks' office. What happens when you get there? Where is this case right now?
A few weeks ago, Mr. Johann van Loggerenberg, who headed the Tax and Customs Enforcement investigations, and Mr. Ivan Pillay, the former Deputy Commissioner, they were called to come and do a warning statement, is what the Hawks call it. So basically they were informed that they are criminally being investigated. Then from that point, there's been exchanges between the legal teams of the two individuals and the Hawks and also the NPA. So that process continues. We all know that they tried to subpoena, if you wish, the Minister of Finance in a similar fashion. And he said, no, I'm under no legal obligation to present myself to you. I've answered your questions. If you want to put charges to me, and I'll defend myself in court.
Something, the SARS spokesperson said something this week, you know, that you all have recourse, and specifically Johann van Loggerenberg, he's in more hot water, if we can say, than you. You helped him write this book. If he was defamed, if those 2014 reports were just made up, surely he has access to the courts. Do you know what I mean? Why wasn't there a huge fight back? In the book, you say that 19 people left, I think, after the initial outflow from SARS. How could SARS get rid of a whole layer of people who had done nothing wrong? Why? I think that the public is trying to understand why there wasn't a bigger pushback.
Well, what we try to do with this book is to put facts to the public. I think taxpayers and the general public has a right to know what transpired in this period from October 2014 specifically until, let's say, March 2016. These headlines started running on the 12th of October, the first mention, 2014, the first mention of a rogue unit in SARS. We constituted a working team of lawyers with an external firm, Adams & Adams from Pretoria, to help lawyers within SARS to present a factual account to the new commissioner, because he started on 1 October. There's this headline about a rogue unit.
Do you mind if I stop you for one
Sure.
minute? Did you know about the unit before that? Were you aware of this legitimate unit?
Many people knew. I was at least on one operation they did in KwaZulu-Natal, where we issued a joint statement with the NPA, with Marine Coastal Management, with the SAPS task team. It was a multi-government agency investigation that led to a successful bust of a significant amount of abalone. We had the media there. This was the kind of work these people did. They did high-risk investigations into organized crime. And when we tried to put facts to the new commissioner, he stopped all attempts. To me, it indicated that some headlines were allowed to run. It was never challenged because it laid a good pretext to take actions against people. And those people, until now, never had the opportunity to defend themselves in multiple investigations, to answer to the allegations against them. And what we're saying, we now have an opportunity to tell the public, these are the facts at our disposal. This is what we can substantiate. And this is what happened to your institution, the South African Revenue Service.
Which I guess will come up in court anyway. Does Johann van Loggerenberg welcome his day in court?
Look, there's great uncertainty. I think from the Minister of Finance to Mr. Pillay to Mr. van Loggerenberg, there's a shadow hanging over all of them of this Hawks investigation. Where it will go, nobody knows. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not a suspect in any criminal matter, but Mr. Moyane and SARS is suing me for 12 million rand defamation. Because after I left the institution in February 2012, or March 2015, I wrote a letter of 28 pages to 2 parliamentary committees. And I put stuff on record, and I said to them, this is information I obtained as a SARS official. I believe what is happening in the institution is wrong. I believe the actions taken against its top management is wrong. You have an oversight function as the Standing Committee on Finance. Please call me, call other affected people. Let us put facts to you that investigations until now have either ignored, subverted, or completely wiped off the table. And in that whole process, the people who were affected were never given their basic legal right to defend themselves.
Okay, so you're being sued for defamation.
Correct.
The book goes into, because people also want to understand, I remember reading those reports in the Sunday Times, strange reports. But if they were all made up, what are the motives behind that? There's this shadowy world coming out of spies for cigarette companies. But explain how so many people would be ganging up against you and your colleagues.
It's difficult to speculate. I still don't know why. We have a better idea of what happened in hindsight. But at the time, it was so confusing. Look, the Sunday Times, to the credit of its new editor, Mr. Bongani Sitoko, on 3 April this year, they apologized to an extent for those headlines. They withdrew many of the headlines and the information they published. They gave Mr. Pillay and Mr. van Loggerenberg an opportunity to state their cases, and they admitted our editorial processes were flawed. They told their readership, we are withdrawing these things effectively, and strangely enough, not a word from SARS. Not a word. In this period, 3 April 2016 to October 2014, 39 articles on this rogue unit were published. No action by Mr. Moyane to defend the institution, not Ivan Pillay, not Johann van Loggerenberg, the institution to defend the integrity.
We're running out of time, so where do these claims come from?
There was a formal complaint against van Loggerenberg by a lawyer, Belinda Walter.
His one-time lover.
Correct. That landed on the 28th of May. The first investigation started there from that point. The information was found to be not credible, and various other investigations followed until at least February 2015, when van Loggerenberg resigned, and Pillay and Piet Richer, also implicated, resigned in May 2015 from SARS.
Very quickly, how do we view the credibility of SARS and its leader right now?
I think I wouldn't want to answer that question. I think the institution has challenges. I think it doesn't help to further deceive the public. I think people should own up for their actions and at some point take the public into their confidence.
All right, thank you so much for your time. One of the co-authors of Rogue and a former SARS spokesperson, Adrian Lackay. More business after the